The knocking wouldn't stop. Grace froze halfway between her couch and the front door. Her phone still playing the meditation podcast she'd been ignoring for the last 20 minutes. It was past midnight. Nobody came to her house past midnight. Nobody came to her house at all, which was exactly why she'd chosen this place after the divorce. A small rental on the outskirts of town where the nearest neighbor was half a mile down a gravel road. The knocking came again. Harder. Desperate. Thunder cracked overhead, shaking the windows, and Grace's heartbeat matched its rhythm. She'd worked a double shift at the hospital, her scrubs still sitting in a heap by the washing machine, her feet aching, her mind still replaying the face of the patient she'd lost in the ICU that afternoon. She wanted silence. She wanted peace. Instead, she got knocking. She moved to the door, her nursing instincts overriding her fear. Through the peephole, she saw nothing but rain and darkness and the wild thrashing of tree branches in the wind. Then she looked down. Child. Soaked to the bone. Barefoot. Trembling so violently Grace could see it even through the distorted glass. She yanked the door open. The girl couldn't have been older than 7. Her hair stuck to her face in dark, wet tangles. Her lips were nearly blue. Blood mixed with mud on her bare feet. In her arms, she clutched a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days, its ear torn and hanging by a thread. Please. The word came out broken, barely louder than the storm. Please, I can't go back. Grace didn't think. She pulled the child inside, kicked the door shut against the wind, and dropped to her knees on the worn wooden floor. Water pooled around the girl's feet. You're freezing. What happened? Where are your parents? The girl's eyes went wide with terror, genuine and raw. Don't call anyone. Please don't call anyone. Okay. Okay, I won't. Grace grabbed the throw blanket from the couch and wrapped it around the shaking child, rubbing her arms to generate warmth. What's your name? The girl hesitated, her small fingers tightening around the rabbit's body. She glanced toward the door as if expecting it to burst open. Lily. I'm Grace. You're safe here, Lily. I promise. The girl looked up at her with eyes too old for her face, eyes that had already seen too much. You shouldn't promise things like that. Grace felt something cold settle in her stomach, but she pushed it aside. She'd been a nurse for 6 years. She knew how to handle emergencies. She knew how to stay calm. But even as she carried Lily toward the bathroom to get her warm and dry, even as she told herself this was just another person who needed help, Grace felt the lie settle heavy in her chest. She didn't know what this child was running from. She didn't know what opening her door tonight had just invited into her life. She only knew that by morning, everything would be different. Hey there, my wonderful friend. How's your day going? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story so far. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Grace ran the bath water until steam fogged the mirror. Lily sat on the closed toilet lid, still clutching that rabbit, still shivering despite the blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Can you tell me where you came from? Grace kept her voice soft, the same tone she used with frightened patients in the ER. Lily shook her head. Are you hurt anywhere besides your feet? Another shake. Grace knelt down and gently examined the cuts on the girl's feet. They weren't deep, but they were fresh. Lily had run a long way through rough terrain. This might sting a little when you get in the water, but I'll clean them properly after. Okay. Okay. As Grace helped her undress and step into the tub, she noticed something that made her pause. The girl's clothes were expensive. Not department store expensive. Custom expensive. The kind of fabric Grace couldn't afford even when she'd been married to someone with money. Lily, someone must be looking for you. Someone must be very worried. Lily's face crumpled. He'll be angry. Who will be angry? Everyone. Lily sank deeper into the water, her chin barely above the bubbles. I wasn't supposed to leave. Grace sat back on her heels. Every protocol she'd ever learned said to call the police. Call child services. This was a runaway child, possibly in danger, possibly endangered by someone. But something in Lily's terror felt different than the cases she'd seen at the hospital. This wasn't a child afraid of getting in trouble. This was a child afraid for her life. "I won't call anyone tonight," Grace said finally. "But tomorrow we need to figure this out. Deal?" Lily studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. After the bath, Grace gave her an old t-shirt to sleep in and settled her on the couch. She cleaned and bandaged the cuts on her feet while Lily ate crackers and cheese, the only food Grace had that didn't require cooking. The girl ate like she was starving, and Grace felt a familiar ache in her chest. She'd wanted children once. Before the miscarriages. Before her husband decided that a wife who couldn't give him a family wasn't worth keeping. "Why do you live alone?" Lily asked suddenly. Grace looked up from the bandage she was taping. "That's a pretty personal question." "You asked me personal questions." "Fair point." "I like being alone." "That's a lie." Lily's eyes were sharp. "Nobody likes being alone. They just get used to it." Grace felt something crack inside her chest. This strange, soaked child had been in her house for less than an hour and had already seen through her better than most people she'd known for years. "You're right," Grace admitted. "I got used to it." "Me too." Lily pulled the rabbit closer. "My house is full of people, but I'm always alone." They sat in silence for a moment, the storm still raging outside. Two lonely people finding unexpected company in the middle of the night. "Get some sleep," Grace finally said. "We'll figure everything out in the morning." But morning came with more than answers. Grace woke on the armchair across from the couch where Lily slept. Sunlight streamed through the windows. The storm had passed, leaving everything clean and bright and deceptively peaceful. Then she heard the sound of tires on gravel. Not one car. Several. Grace moved to the window and felt her blood turn cold. 3 black SUVs rolled up her driveway in formation, their windows tinted so dark they looked like moving shadows. They stopped in front of her house with military precision. "Lily!" Grace's voice came out strangled. "Lily, wake up!" The girl sat up, saw the vehicles through the window, and went completely pale. "He found me." "Who found you?" Before Lily could answer, a man stepped out of the lead SUV. Grace had seen dangerous men before. She'd stitched up gang members in the ER, had escorted violent patients to psych wards, had learned to spot predators in waiting rooms. But she had never seen anyone like this. He moved with the kind of confidence that didn't need to announce itself. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black from head to toe. Dark hair that caught the morning light. Even from a distance, Grace could see the tattoos that crawled up his neck and disappeared beneath his collar. He looked at her house the way a wolf looks at a rabbit's den. And then his eyes found the window where she stood. Grace stopped breathing. "That's my father," Lily whispered. "That's Damien." Grace made herself open the door before he could knock. Up close, Damien Voss was even more overwhelming. He stood on her porch like he owned it, his presence filling the entire doorway. His eyes were gray, cold as winter ice, and they swept over her in a single assessing glance that made her feel stripped bare. "Where is my daughter?" His voice was quiet, controlled. Somehow that made it more terrifying. "She's inside. She's safe." "Safe." He repeated the word like it tasted bitter. "My 7-year-old daughter ran away in a thunderstorm, and you think safe is the word I want to hear right now?" Grace lifted her chin. "She came to me terrified. I wasn't going to turn her away." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe. People clearly didn't talk back to him often. "Daddy!" Lily appeared beside Grace, her small hand gripping the doorframe. The change in Damien was immediate and startling. His entire body softened. He dropped to one knee, and when Lily ran to him, he caught her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. "You scared me," he said into her hair. Not angry, just honest. "I'm sorry." He pulled back to look at her, his hands cupping her face with a gentleness Grace hadn't expected from a man covered in tattoos and surrounded by armed guards. "We'll talk about it at home. Are you hurt?" Grace helped me. She gave me a bath and bandaged my feet and let me sleep on her couch. Damien stood slowly, Lily in his arms, and turned those gray eyes back to Grace. You helped her. Of course I did. You didn't call the police. She asked me not to. He studied her for a long moment, and Grace felt like he was seeing things she hadn't meant to show. Her loneliness. Her instinct to protect. The empty house behind her that had been waiting for someone to need her. What's your name? Grace Holloway. Grace. He said it slowly like he was memorizing it. I owe you a debt. You don't owe me anything. Yes, he said quietly. I do. He turned to leave, then paused at the steps. Someone will be watching your house. For your protection. I don't need protection. Damien looked back at her, and something dark moved through his expression. You sheltered my daughter. That means my enemies know your name by now. Whether you need protection or not is no longer your choice. He walked away, and Grace realized with creeping dread that he was right. She'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. The black sedan appeared across the street the next morning. Grace spotted it when she left for her shift at the hospital. It was still there when she came home 12 hours later. Different car. Same presence. She was being watched. 3 days passed. The surveillance continued. Grace tried to return to normal life, but normal didn't exist anymore. She felt eyes on her at the grocery store. A man in a dark jacket appeared at the coffee shop she frequented. Her co-workers asked if everything was okay. She lied and said yes. On the 4th day, Damien came back. He arrived at dusk, alone this time, driving a sleek black car that probably cost more than Grace made in 2 years. He knocked, and when she opened the door, he stood there with an expression she couldn't read. How is Lily? Grace asked. Settling. She asks about you. Something warm bloomed in Grace's chest. Tell her I hope her feet are healing. I didn't come here to deliver messages. He paused. May I come in? Every instinct told her to say no. Instead she stepped aside. Damien moved through her small living room like he was cataloging everything. The worn furniture. The medical textbooks on the shelf. The single coffee mug in the sink. He turned to face her, and Grace felt the full weight of his attention. You live simply. I live within my means. No family photos. I don't have family. The words came out harder than she intended. His eyes softened slightly. Lily ran away because I had to attend a meeting. Business. The kind that required my full attention. He moved closer, and Grace held her ground. She's used to being a priority. That night she wasn't. So she left. She's 7. She shouldn't have to compete with your business. No, he agreed quietly. She shouldn't. The admission surprised her. Grace had expected defensiveness, justification, not honesty. Why are you telling me this? Because you're the first person she trusted enough to run to. And I need to understand why. Grace crossed her arms. Maybe because I didn't treat her like a burden. The words hit their mark. She saw it in the way his jaw tightened. But instead of anger, Damien smiled, sharp and dangerous, and something else underneath. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? Most people are. I'm not most people. He stepped closer, close enough that Grace could smell expensive cologne and something darker underneath. No, you're not. The air between them charged with something Grace didn't want to name. She stepped back. If that's all you came to say. It's not. His voice dropped lower. Lily's birthday is next week. She wants you there. That's not appropriate. Since when do children care about appropriate? He pulled a card from his pocket and set it on her coffee table. Saturday. 2 in the afternoon. My address is on the card. Think about it. He left before she could refuse. Grace stared at the card for an hour after he'd gone. Heavy stock. Embossed lettering. An address in the most expensive part of the city. She should throw it away. Instead she put it in her wallet. Work became her escape. The hospital was the one place the watchers couldn't follow her inside, the one place her life still made sense. On Friday, she picked up an extra shift in the ICU, desperate for the distraction. That's when she met Angela. The woman appeared in the staff break room during Grace's lunch. Early 50s, kind eyes, a visitor badge clipped to her sweater. "I'm sorry to bother you," Angela said. "I'm looking for Grace Holloway." Grace tensed. "That's me." "Oh, thank goodness." Angela's smile was warm and genuine. "My name is Angela Chen. I'm a social worker. I was hoping we could talk about Lily Voss." Every alarm in Grace's body went off at once. "I don't know what you mean. Please, I'm not here to cause trouble. I've been trying to check on Lily for months. Her father is very protective. He doesn't allow outsiders near her." Angela sat down across from her. "But I heard she came to you, that she trusted you. I was hoping you could tell me if she seemed okay. If she seemed safe." Grace wanted to walk away. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap. But the concern in Angela's eyes seemed real. "She seemed scared," Grace said carefully. "But not abused. Just lonely." Angela nodded slowly. "Damien Voss is a complicated man. He loves his daughter. But the life he leads, the things he's involved in, they're not safe for a child. I've been trying to build a case to get Lily into protective custody, but I need evidence. I need someone who's seen her, who she trusts, to help me." Grace's stomach dropped. "You want me to testify against him? I want you to help save a little girl." Before Grace could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "The woman you're talking to isn't a social worker. Get away from her now." Grace looked up. Angela's kind expression hadn't changed. But her eyes had gone cold. Grace stood, her chair scraping against the floor. "I need to get back to work." "Of course." Angela rose too, her smile never wavering. "Think about what I said. For Lily's sake." She left, and Grace's hands shook as she deleted the text message. She didn't know who'd sent it. She didn't know who to trust. But she knew she needed to warn Damien. She called the number on his card. He answered on the first ring. "Someone just approached me," Grace said without preamble. "Claimed to be a social worker named Angela Chen. Asked me to help build a case against you to take Lily." Silence. Then, "Where are you?" "The hospital." "She just left." "Stay there. I'm sending someone." 20 minutes later, a woman in a dark suit appeared. She escorted Grace to the parking garage where Damien waited beside his car. His expression carved from stone. "Describe her," he said. Grace did. Every detail she could remember. Damien's face went darker with each word. "That's Miranda Kozlov. She works for the Bratva, the Russian syndicate that's been trying to get leverage on me for 6 months." Grace's blood went cold. "Why would they approach me?" "Because you're my weakness now." He moved closer, his voice dropping to something almost gentle. "Because Lily loves you, which means I'm in your debt, which means they think they can use you to get to me. I didn't ask for any of this." "I know." Something pained crossed his face. "I'm sorry. I should have stayed away. But I needed to see you again." The confession hung in the air between them. Grace should have been angry. Should have told him to leave and never come back. But all she felt was the pull of something she didn't understand. Something dangerous and inevitable. "Come to Lily's party tomorrow," Damien said quietly. "Let me keep you safe. Please." Against every bit of common sense she had left, Grace nodded. Saturday afternoon, she drove to the address on the card. The house was a mansion, set back from the road behind iron gates and security cameras. Guards waved her through after checking her name on a list. Lily met her at the door with a squeal of delight, throwing her arms around Grace's waist. "You came." "Of course I did." Party was small. A few children from Lily's private school, some relatives Grace didn't recognize, and Damien, who watched her from across the room with an intensity that made her skin warm. For 2 hours, Grace let herself pretend. KK. She watched Lily open presents. She laughed at a clown's magic tricks. She felt almost normal. Then the screaming started. Came from outside. Terrified. Short. Damien moved instantly, pulling a gun from beneath his jacket. Everyone down. Now. The room erupted into chaos. Children crying. Adults dropping to the floor. Damien's guards rushing toward the doors. Damien grabbed Grace's arm. Get Lily to the safe room. Third door on the left upstairs. Code is 0703. Go. Grace didn't think. She scooped Lily into her arms and ran. She made it to the stairs when the windows shattered. Glass exploded inward. Someone fired shots. Grace felt something hot graze her shoulder but kept running, Lily screaming in her arms. Third door on the left. She punched in the code with shaking fingers. The door opened, and Miranda Kozlov stood on the other side, gun raised, smiling. Hello, Grace. Thank you for bringing her to me. Grace's world stopped. This wasn't random. This wasn't an attack. This was a plan. And she just delivered exactly what they wanted. Lily. No, Grace whispered. Yes. Miranda's smile widened. Did you really think we didn't know about the safe room? About the code? We've had someone inside this house for months. She grabbed Lily from Grace's arms. And you led her right to us like the perfect little pawn. Grace lunged forward, but Miranda slammed the gun against her temple. The world went dark. When she woke, Lily was gone. Grace came to on cold marble, her head pounding where Miranda had struck her. Blood trickled down her temple. The safe room door hung open, mocking her. Lily was gone. She'd handed her over like a gift-wrapped package. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Damien appeared in the doorway, his face savage with rage and fear. He saw the empty room, saw Grace on the floor. His gun came up, aimed directly at her head. Where is she? Grace couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The look in his eyes was pure murder. Where is my daughter? His voice cracked on the last word. Miranda was waiting. Inside the safe room. She knew the code. She knew everything. Grace's voice came out broken. I brought Lily right to her. I didn't know. I didn't. Damien's hand shook. For one horrible second, Grace thought he'd pull the trigger. Maybe she wanted him to. Then he lowered the gun and turned away, his free hand gripping the doorframe so hard his knuckles went white. Get out! Damien! Get out! He roared it, and Grace flinched. You were supposed to protect her. That's all you had to do. And you led her straight into their hands. Every word was a knife. Every word was true. Grace pulled herself to her feet, her legs shaking, and walked past him, down the stairs, through the chaos of the aftermath, past the bodies of guards who died trying to protect a child Grace had delivered to her kidnappers. No one stopped her. No one even looked at her. She made it to her car, drove home on autopilot, walked into her empty house and stood in the middle of her living room where Lily had slept just days ago. The stuffed rabbit sat on the couch. The one Lily had been clutching. She'd left it behind when she went to the party. Grace picked it up with shaking hands and sank to the floor. She'd spent 3 years building this safe, isolated life after her divorce. No complications. No vulnerabilities. No one close enough to hurt her. And the first time she'd let someone in, the first time she'd let herself care, she'd gotten that person taken. Possibly killed. Her phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Where are you? You missed your shift. She could go back. Return to her life. Pretend the last week never happened. Damien would handle this. He had resources, people, weapons. He didn't need a broken nurse who'd already proven she couldn't protect anyone. Grace stared at the message. Her thumb hovered over the reply. This was the out. The escape hatch. Walk away before it got worse. Before she got Lily killed. The rational choice. The safe choice. Then she saw it. Something tucked into the rabbit's torn ear. A tiny piece of paper, folded so small she'd almost missed it. Grace pulled it free with trembling fingers and unfolded it. If I ever get scared again, I'll leave Mr. Hoppy behind so you can find me. Because you're the only one who ever came looking. Lily. The note was old. Priest. Written in crayon. Lily had planted it days ago, probably right after that first night. A 7-year-old child had more faith in Grace than Grace had in herself. She'd spent 3 years hiding because she was afraid of being hurt again. Afraid of failing again. Afraid of mattering to someone and not being enough. And Lily had seen right through her that first night. Nobody likes being alone. They just get used to it. Grace wiped her eyes. Her hands had stopped shaking. She couldn't undo what she'd done. Couldn't take back leading Lily into that trap. But she could do what Lily believed she would. She could come looking. Not because she was strong. Not because she had training or resources or any idea what she was doing. But because a terrified little girl had knocked on her door and Grace had made a promise. You're safe here, Lily. Promise. She'd broken that promise. But she could still keep it. Grace stood, pocketed the note, and picked up her phone. She didn't text the hospital back. She called Damien. He answered with one word. What? I know you hate me. I know I deserve it. But I'm not walking away. Her voice was steady now. Clear. Lily left me a message. She knew something might happen. And she trusted me to find her. Silence. I don't care if you don't want my help, Grace continued. I don't care if I'm useless. I'm not giving up on her. So either let me help or try to stop me. More silence. Then quietly. Come to the estate. We have a lead. He hung up. Grace grabbed her keys, still wearing yesterday's clothes, still bleeding from the head wound she hadn't bothered to clean. She'd spent 3 years running from connection. Now she'd burn the whole world down to get one little girl back. Grace arrived at the estate to find it transformed into a war room. Maps covered every surface. Men in tactical gear spoke in clipped voices. Screens displayed security footage, street cameras, satellite imagery. Damien stood at the center of it all. His jaw tight. His eyes bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept. Probably hadn't. He saw her and jerked his head toward a side room. She followed. The door closed behind them, and for a moment they just stood there. The silence was suffocating. Miranda's Bratva, Damien said finally. They've been trying to get leverage on me for months. My organization controls the ports. They want access for their trafficking routes. I refused. His hands clenched. So they took the only thing that could make me say yes. You think they'll trade her? I know they will. They already sent terms. I give them the ports, they give me Lily. He looked at her, and the pain in his eyes was raw. Alive. If I agree within 24 hours. Grace's stomach dropped. How long has it been? 16 hours. 8 hours left. 8 hours to find a child in a city of millions. Held by people who'd kill her the second the deal went through. Because why leave a witness? You have a lead, Grace said. You told me you had a lead. Damien pulled up footage on a tablet. Street camera caught one of their vehicles 40 minutes after the attack, heading east toward the industrial district. We've narrowed it to 3 possible warehouses. He zoomed in on the map. But the second we hit the wrong location, they'll know we're coming. They'll move her or kill her. So we need to know which one before you move. Yes. Grace studied the map, her mind racing. The woman who came to the hospital. Miranda. She knew details about Lily. Personal things. How long she'd been having nightmares. Her favorite foods. She looked up. She's been watching her. Closely. 4 months. Damien's expression darkened. We swept the house. Found cameras in Lily's room. The kitchen. Everywhere. He paused. The safe room code was changed 3 days ago. Only 5 people knew the new one. You have a traitor in your inner circle. Had. His voice went cold. I've dealt with 4 of them. The 5th. He pulled up a photo. Is standing in this room. Grace's blood turned to ice. The photo showed Marcus, Damien's head of security. The man who'd escorted her from the hospital. The man who'd waved her through the gates at the party. The man standing guard outside the door right now. He doesn't know I know, Damien said quietly. I kept him close. Because he's my last link to finding Lily. Grace's nurse instincts kicked in, the same ones that had kept her calm during codes and emergencies. If he's still here, he's still useful to them. Which means he's still communicating. Damien nodded slowly. I've been monitoring his phone. Waiting for confirmation of the location. He checked his watch. But we're running out of time. A knock at the door. Marcus's voice. Boss, we got movement on the east side. Teams ready to deploy. Damien met Grace's eyes. In that look was a question. Tess, trust me. Help me. Don't run. Grace took a breath and opened the door. Marcus, Damien needs you to review the security footage. Something about the timeline doesn't match. Marcus stepped inside, and Damien closed the door behind him. What timeline? Marcus asked. The one where you sold out a 7-year-old girl. Damien's gun was already out, already pressed against Marcus's spine. Don't move. Don't speak. Just unlock your phone and put it on the table. Marcus went rigid. For a second, Grace thought he'd fight. Then his shoulders sagged. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and set it down. Damien kept the gun on him while Grace grabbed the phone. Recent messages. Encrypted app. But the last message had come through 2 minutes ago. Package secure at location C. Awaiting final confirmation. Location C. The third warehouse. How many guards? Damien's voice was deadly calm. Marcus said nothing. Damien cocked the gun. How many? 6. Plus Miranda. Marcus's voice cracked. They have my sister. They said they'd kill her if I didn't cooperate. So you gave them mine. The room went silent. Grace saw it in Damien's eyes. The cold calculation. The rage. Marcus had betrayed him, gotten his men killed, put Lily in the hands of monsters. Marcus saw it too. Please. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. Damien's finger moved to the trigger. Wait. Grace's voice cut through the tension. He can help us get in. Damien didn't lower the gun. Why would I trust anything he says? Because they have his sister. Because he wants her back just like you want Lily back. She moved closer to Marcus. You know the warehouse. You know the layout. The guard positions. Everything. Marcus nodded desperately. I can draw it out. Tell you everything. And the second we leave you'll warn them, Damien said. So we don't leave him behind. Grace looked at Damien. We bring him with us. He gets us in. If he tries anything you shoot him. If his information is good and we get Lily back. She paused. Then you let him try to save his sister. Damien stared at her like she'd grown a second head. You want me to trust the man who betrayed me? No. I want you to use him. There's a difference. Something shifted in Damien's expression. Surprise. Maybe respect. He lowered the gun slightly. You have 5 minutes to tell me everything. If I even think you're lying, Grace won't be able to put you back together. Understand? Marcus nodded and grabbed a pen. While he sketched the warehouse layout, Grace's mind raced. 6 guards plus Miranda. Damien would bring his team, but a frontal assault would get Lily killed. They needed a different approach. The guards are expecting a deal, Grace said slowly. Not a rescue. Damien looked up. What are you thinking? I'm thinking you agree to their terms. You show up to make the trade. They'll have their guard down if they think they've won. They'll be suspicious if I come alone. You won't be alone. Grace met his eyes. You'll have your lawyer. Someone non-threatening. Someone they won't see as a danger. Understanding dawned on Damien's face. No. Absolutely not. It's the only way to get close enough. They know what you look like. They know you helped her before. Exactly. I'm the perfect person to bring. A civilian. Proof you're playing by their rules. She kept her voice steady even though her heart was racing. I can get close to Lily. And when your team moves, I can get her out. You have no training. No experience. You'll get yourself killed. Maybe. Grace's hands weren't shaking anymore. But I'm the reason she's in there. I'm not letting someone else fix my mistake. Damien studied her for a long moment. Then he turned to Marcus. Where will they keep her? Marcus pointed to a spot on his sketch. Second floor. Northwest corner. Office with reinforced door. Guards. One inside. One outside the door. And Miranda. She'll be on the main floor for the exchange. Damien pulled out his phone and started making calls. Tactical instructions. Team positions. Extraction routes. Grace watched him transform from devastated father to calculated commander. This was the man who controlled the criminal underworld. The man Miranda had tried to leverage. He hung up and looked at Grace. You stay behind me at all times. When I say run, you run. When I say get down, you get down. No heroics. No improvising. Clear. Clear. And Grace. His voice softened slightly. If this goes wrong, if we don't make it out, we'll make it out. If we don't, he continued, I need you to know that I don't blame you. Not really. They would have found another way. Another weakness. He paused. I blame myself for letting her become visible. For not protecting her better. Grace understood then. They were both carrying the same guilt. Both desperate to fix what they'd broken. We'll get her back, she said. Yes. Damien checked his gun, his jaw set. We will. They had 6 hours left. The drive to the warehouse was silent. Damien drove. Marcus sat in back with zip ties on his wrists. And Grace rode shotgun with her heart in her throat. When the warehouse came into view, a massive, decaying structure surrounded by empty lots and rusted machinery, Damien's phone buzzed. A message from Miranda. Bring the contracts. Come alone with your lawyer. Any tricks and the girl dies. Damien looked at Grace. Last chance to back out. Grace thought of Lily's note. You're the only one who ever came looking. Let's go get her. They parked. Damien pulled on a jacket to hide his gun, grabbed a briefcase full of fake contracts, and they walked toward the entrance. The door opened before they reached it. Miranda stood there, smiling, flanked by armed men. Right on time. I appreciate punctuality. Where is she? Damien's voice was ice. Safe. For now. Miranda's eyes slid to Grace. I'm surprised you brought her. I thought she'd be too traumatized after what happened. She's my lawyer, Damien lied smoothly. She needs to witness the contract. How official. Miranda stepped aside. Come in. Let's make this quick. They entered the warehouse, and Grace's training kicked in. She cataloged everything. Sightlines. Exit points. The metal staircase leading to the second floor. The office with a closed door at the top. Behind that door was Lily. The contracts, Miranda demanded. Damien set the briefcase on a rusted table, popped it open, pulled out papers that looked official and completely fake. While Miranda examined them, Grace shifted slightly, closer to the stairs, calculating distances. These look legitimate, Miranda said. Now we just need your signature and... The lights went out. Chaos erupted. Gunfire. Shouting. Damien's team breaching through every entrance at once. Go! Damien shoved Grace toward the stairs while he drew his weapon. Grace ran. Up the metal steps, her feet clanging against the grating. A guard appeared at the top and she didn't think, just grabbed the railing and swung her body, kicking him in the chest with both feet. He went down, shocked, and Grace scrambled past him. The office door. Lily. She pounded on it. Small voice inside. Grace. Stand back, baby. Grace looked around desperately. No key. No time. Downstairs the firefight was intensifying. Then she saw it. A fire extinguisher on the wall. She grabbed it, said a prayer, and slammed it into the door handle. Once. 3 times. The handle broke. The door swung open. Lily sat in the corner, tear-stained and terrified but alive. Alive. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. Grace scooped her up and ran. Grace made it halfway down the stairs before Miranda stepped into view below, gun raised. "Stop right there." Grace froze, Lily trembling in her arms. Around them, the firefight had gone silent. Damien's men had secured the main floor. Bodies littered the ground. Miranda's guards, unconscious or worse. But Miranda still had her weapon trained directly on Lily's head. "Put her down," Miranda said calmly. "Or I'll shoot through you to get to her." Grace's mind raced. She was 10 feet up on metal stairs. No cover. No weapon. No way to shield Lily from a bullet at this range. "Miranda!" Damien's voice came from the shadows below. "It's over. Your men are down. The Bratva won't back you after a failed operation like this." "The Bratva doesn't need to back me." Miranda's smile was vicious. "I have what I came for. I'll take the girl. You'll give me safe passage. Or I'll kill her right here and you'll have nothing." "You won't kill her," Grace heard herself say. "She's your only leverage. Are you willing to bet her life on that?" Grace looked down at Lily, who stared back up at her with those two old eyes. The same eyes that had seen through Grace's loneliness that first night. The same child who'd left a note in a stuffed rabbit because she believed Grace would come. And Grace understood something then. For 3 years, she'd been so afraid of not being enough, of failing, of letting people down. That fear had made her hide. Made her keep everyone at arm's length. Made her measure herself by everything she'd lost instead of what she still had to give. But Lily had never needed her to be perfect. She just needed someone to show up. "I'm not betting anything," Grace said quietly. She took a step down the stairs. "I'm calling your bluff." Miranda's eyes narrowed. "What? You won't shoot her? Because you're not here for revenge or leverage." Grace took another step, her voice growing stronger. "You're here because the Bratva sent you to prove yourself. To deliver results. A dead hostage isn't results. It's failure." She saw it. The flicker of uncertainty in Miranda's eyes. "And if you shoot me, Damien will kill you before my body hits the ground. You know that. You're already calculating your exit strategy." Another step. "So here's what's going to happen." Grace's voice was steady now. Certain. "I'm walking down these stairs with Lily. You're going to lower your weapon. And you're going to leave. Because staying gets you nothing but a bullet. You're bluffing." But Miranda's gun wavered slightly. "No." Grace met her eyes. "I'm done being afraid." She took another step. Then another. Miranda's finger tightened on the trigger. And for one horrible second Grace thought she'd miscalculated. Then a shot rang out. But it didn't come from Miranda's gun. Miranda jerked forward, a red stain blooming on her shoulder. Her weapon clattered to the concrete. Grace spun. At the top of the stairs, Marcus stood with a smoking gun in his zip-tied hands. His face pale but determined. "I'm done being afraid too," he said quietly. Damien's men swarmed Miranda before she could move, securing her, dragging her toward the exit. Grace stumbled down the rest of the stairs on shaking legs. The second her feet hit solid ground, Damien was there, pulling Lily from her arms and into his. He sank to his knees, holding his daughter like she was the only thing keeping him alive. "You're okay. You're okay. I've got you." Lily buried her face in his neck. "I knew you'd find me. I knew Grace would help." Damien looked up at Grace over Lily's head, and the emotion in his eyes was raw and overwhelming. Gratitude. Oh, something deeper he couldn't name. "You walked toward a loaded gun," he said hoarsely. "So did you. Every day for her." Grace felt her legs give out, adrenaline finally crashing. She sat down hard on the concrete, her whole body shaking. Damien shifted Lily to one arm and reached for Grace with the other, pulling her close. The three of them sat there in the wreckage, holding on to each other like lifelines. "Is it over?" Lily whispered. Damien looked toward where his men were loading Miranda into a vehicle. Marcus stood off to the side, still restrained but no longer a prisoner, something closer to an asset awaiting judgment. Not quite yet, Damien said. He handed Lily to Grace and walked over to Marcus. The two men stood face to face, and the warehouse went silent. Everyone watching. Everyone waiting to see what Damien Voss would do to the man who'd betrayed him. "You sold out my daughter," Damien said quietly. Marcus didn't look away. "Yes. You got 3 of my men killed." "Yes. But you also just saved her life." Damien studied him. "Why?" Marcus swallowed hard. "Because I looked at that little girl and saw my sister. And I realized that if I let her die to save my own family, I'd become exactly the kind of monster I was trying to protect my sister from." His voice cracked. "I can't undo what I did. But I could stop it from getting worse." Damien was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled out a knife. Marcus didn't flinch. Damien cut the zip ties. "You have 48 hours to get your sister somewhere safe," he said. "After that you disappear. I don't care where. I don't care how. But if I ever see you again, if you ever step foot in this city again, I will finish what I should have done today." "Understood." Marcus nodded, his eyes wet. "Understood. Thank you." "Don't thank me. Thank her." Damien nodded toward Grace. "She's the only reason you're breathing." Marcus looked at Grace, who still sat on the floor with Lily in her lap. "I'm sorry. For all of it." Grace just nodded. She was too tired for anger. Too relieved for revenge. Marcus left, walking quickly toward the exit before Damien could change his mind. Damien returned to Grace and Lily. He crouched down beside them. "Can you stand?" "I think so." He helped her up, and together they walked out of the warehouse into the fading afternoon light. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Damien's people had already called it in as a gang dispute. No mention of kidnapping. No mention of Grace. By the time authorities arrived, Damien's vehicles were gone, melting into the city like they'd never been there. Grace sat in the back of the SUV with Lily curled in her lap, finally sleeping. Damien drove, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every few seconds to check on his daughter. "Where are we going?" Grace asked quietly. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere new." He paused. "Miranda wasn't working alone. The Bratva will regroup. We need to disappear for a while." "We?" Damien's eyes met hers in the mirror. "You're part of this now. Part of us. They won't stop coming after you just because we got Lily back." Grace looked down at the sleeping child in her arms. The child who'd knocked on her door and asked for help. The child who'd believed Grace would come even when Grace didn't believe in herself. "Okay," she said. "Okay. I'll come with you. Wherever you're going." Something soft moved through Damien's expression. "You don't have to. I can arrange protection, a new identity, somewhere far from all this." "I know." Grace stroked Lily's hair. "But she asked me not to leave. The night she came to my door. She said, 'Don't leave me.' And I won't." Damien's hands tightened on the steering wheel. When he spoke again, his voice was rough with emotion. "I thought I lost everything today. My daughter. My control. My entire world." He met her eyes in the mirror again. "But somehow I ended up with more than I started with." "What do you mean?" "I mean I've spent 10 years building walls. Keeping Lily isolated to keep her safe. Trusting no one. Letting no one in." He paused. "And a woman I met a week ago just walked into gunfire for my daughter without hesitation. Showed me that sometimes the strongest protection isn't isolation. It's connection." Grace felt tears sting her eyes. "I spent 3 years doing the same thing. Hiding. Keeping everyone out. Telling myself I was safer alone. And now." She looked at Lily, then back at Damien. "Now I think maybe I was just scared. And maybe being scared is a lot less powerful than being loved." The SUV pulled into an underground garage. Damien killed the engine and turned to face her properly. "I can't promise you normal," he said quietly. I can't promise you safe. My life is complicated and dangerous and… I'm a nurse, Grace interrupted. I'm used to complicated and dangerous. I'm not looking for easy, Damien. I'm just looking for real. He reached back and took her hand. His palm was warm, calloused, strong. Then stay. Both of you. Let me keep you safe. Let me. He trailed off, struggling with words he clearly didn't say often. Let me try to deserve the second chance you gave me today. You already do. Lily stirred in Grace's arms and opened her eyes. She looked at her father, then at Grace, then smiled sleepily. Are we home? Damien smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Not yet, little one. But we're getting there. He lifted Lily into his arms, then helped Grace out of the vehicle. Together they walked toward the elevator. A broken nurse, a dangerous man, and a little girl who'd brought them both back to life. The doors closed, and Grace realized something. For 3 years, she'd been convinced her story ended with divorce and loss and loneliness. But maybe it had just been waiting for the right moment to begin. 6 months later, Grace woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of pancakes burning in the kitchen below. She smiled before she even opened her eyes. The safe house was in coastal Maine, tucked into rocky cliffs overlooking the Atlantic. Far from the city. Far from the Bratva. Far from everything they'd left behind. She pulled on a sweater and padded downstairs barefoot, following the sound of Lily's laughter. Daddy, they're black. They're charcoal grilled. It's a technique. It's a disaster. Grace leaned against the doorway, watching Damien flip a smoking pancake while Lily sat at the counter, giggling. Mr. Hoppy, carefully re-stitched and cleaned, sat beside her. Damien looked up and caught Grace's eye. Don't say it. I didn't say anything. You were thinking it. I was thinking, Grace said, moving into the kitchen, that I should probably take over before you burn the house down. Traitor. But he stepped aside, handing her the spatula, his hand lingering on hers just a moment longer than necessary. These small touches had become their language. A brush of fingers. A hand on the small of her back. The way he reached for her in his sleep, as if making sure she was still there. They hadn't defined what they were. Hadn't put labels on the way Lily called them both when she had nightmares, or the way Damien's eyes followed Grace around every room, or the way Grace had stopped thinking about her old life entirely. They were just together. A family built from broken pieces that somehow fit. Grace salvaged breakfast while Lily chattered about the tide pools they'd explored yesterday. Damien drank his coffee and watched them both with an expression Grace had learned to recognize. Contentment, mixed with vigilance. He'd never fully relax. Never fully let his guard down. That was the price of their victory. After breakfast, while Lily did her homeschool lessons at the dining table, Damien and Grace walked down to the cliffs. The ocean crashed against the rocks below, wild and endless. I heard from my contact in the city, Damien said quietly. The Bratva pulled back. They're fighting internal wars now. Miranda's failure cost them too much territory. So we're safe. Safer. He turned to face her. But there are always new threats. New enemies. My past doesn't just disappear because we moved to Maine. Grace nodded. She'd known this. Had accepted it the moment she'd chosen to stay. I'm not going back to nursing, she said suddenly. It was something she'd been thinking about for weeks. Not in a hospital. Not like before. Damien studied her face. What do you want to do? I want to help people who can't go to hospitals. People like Lily was. People running from things they can't explain to authorities. She met his eyes. Your world is full of them. I could make a difference. Understanding dawned on his face. An underground clinic. Something like that. He was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. I know people who would help set it up. Safe locations. Untraceable supplies. He paused. But Grace, once you start that, there's no going back to normal. She almost laughed. Damien, I stopped being normal the night I opened my door to a terrified child. I'm not trying to go back. I'm trying to move forward. He reached for her then, cupping her face in his hands. I don't deserve you. You keep saying that. Because it keeps being true. Grace rose on her toes and kissed him. A brief. A promise of more when little eyes weren't potentially watching from the house. When she pulled back, his eyes were dark with emotion. I love you, he said quietly. I don't know when it happened. Somewhere between you walking into gunfire and burning your first batch of pancakes in this kitchen. But I do. Grace's heart stuttered. You know I can't give you more children. The miscarriages, the damage. I know. And I don't care. He pressed his forehead to hers. You gave me back the child I already have. You gave me yourself. That's more than I ever thought I'd get. I love you too, she whispered. Even though you're dangerous and overprotective and terrible at pancakes. He laughed, and the sound was so rare and genuine that Grace wanted to bottle it. They walked back to the house hand in hand. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Grace found herself standing in the doorway of the girl's bedroom, just watching her breathe. A habit she couldn't break. Damien appeared beside her, sliding an arm around her waist. She had a good day, he said softly. She did. No nightmares last night. I know. They stood there in comfortable silence, watching over the child who'd changed everything. Do you ever regret it? Damien asked. Opening your door that night. Grace thought about her old life. The empty house. The isolation she'd called safety. The way she'd been slowly disappearing into her own loneliness. Not even once, she said. Lily stirred in her sleep, reaching for Mr. Hoppy. Even in dreams, she held tight to the things that made her feel safe. Grace remembered the note tucked in that rabbit's ear. You're the only one who ever came looking. She saved me just as much as I saved her, Grace said quietly. She saved us both. Damien pressed a kiss to her temple. Come on. Let her sleep. They retreated to the living room where a fire crackled in the hearth. Grace curled into the couch, and Damien sat beside her, pulling her feet into his lap like he did every night. This was their routine now. Quiet evenings. Lily asleep upstairs. The ocean providing white noise outside. A peace neither of them had known before. I got a call today, Damien said, breaking the comfortable silence. From Marcus. Grace sat up slightly. Is he okay? He got his sister out. They're somewhere in Canada. New names. New lives. Damien paused. He wanted me to thank you again. Said you seeing something worth saving in him changed everything. Everyone deserves a second chance. Not everyone earns it the way he did. Damien's fingers absently traced patterns on her ankle. I've been thinking about that. About second chances. About the people in my organization who might want out but don't know how. Grace heard the shift in his tone. What are you thinking? I'm thinking maybe it's time to change how things work. Offer exits to people who want them. Create something less destructive. He met her eyes. I can't walk away from my world entirely. But maybe I can make it better. Maybe that's my second chance. Grace's heart swelled. This was the man no one else saw. The one who'd been shaped by violence but wanted to create something better for his daughter. For the people around him. I think that's exactly what you should do, she said. They sat in silence for a while longer, the fire burning low, the night settling around them. Grace thought about the past 6 months. The fear. The danger. The moments she'd been certain they wouldn't survive. But also the laughter. The healing. The way Lily had started sleeping through the night. The way Damien had started smiling. The way Grace had stopped feeling like she was just surviving and started actually living. She'd lost things to get here. Her old job. Her independence. Her illusion of safety. But she'd gained so much more. Hey, Damien said softly. Where'd you go? Grace smiled. Just thinking about a year ago. How different everything was. Better or worse? She looked around the room. At the home they'd built. At the life they'd created. At the man beside her who'd let her see past his armor. Better, she said. Definitely better. Later, as they locked up the house and headed upstairs, Grace paused at the front door. She thought about the night Lily had appeared. Oh, terrified. Desperate. Please. Can't go back. Grace had made a promise that night. You're safe here, Lily. Promise. And Lily had responded with words that haunted her for days. You shouldn't promise things like that. But Grace had kept that promise. Against all odds. Against all reason. And in keeping it, she'd found her way back to herself. You coming? Damien called from the stairs. Yeah. Grace turned off the porch light. I'm coming. She climbed the stairs to where her family waited. To the life she'd built from one moment of choosing connection over safety. As she slipped into bed beside Damien, his arm automatically curling around her waist, Grace felt something she hadn't felt in years. Oh, not the fragile, desperate kind, but the solid, earned kind. The kind built on sacrifice and trust and love that had been tested by fire. Outside, the ocean crashed against the cliffs. Relentless. Eternal. Inside, 3 broken people slept peacefully, healed by the family they'd chosen. Grace's last thought before sleep claimed her was simple. Home. The next morning, Grace found an envelope slipped under the front door. No postage. No return address. Just her name written in elegant script. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single sentence. We always find what we're looking for. The question is, are you ready for what comes next? No signature. Grace stared at the note, her heart racing, then looked toward the kitchen where she could hear Lily's laughter and Damien's voice. She crumpled the note in her fist, walked to the fireplace, and threw it into the flames. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. But as the paper burned to ash, Grace couldn't shake the feeling that their story was far from over. Some doors, once opened, could never be fully closed.